1:30. Keep going.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the October 9th Hanford Advisory Board's COE committee meeting. My name is Lindsay Summers, and I am the DDFO for the Hanford site. Just a few reminders before we get started. This meeting will be conducted in accordance with the requirements of FACA, and each member has a joint responsibility for assuring the operating ground rules are observed and discussions are conducted in a respectful manner. I appreciate everyone's attendance today, and I look forward to a great meeting. Josh?
Couple of administrative items to go over before we begin. We take attendance for our committee meetings. If you have not already, please sign in on the sheet up at the front table. This meeting is being recorded and will be posted to the Hanford site YouTube channel. As you can see, there are a lot of people in the room, but they're also joining us online as you showing up as faces on this TV over here. In order to speak to them, that's counterintuitively, you want to speak to these owls in the middle of the room. They can see us and hear us from those. And we have our chair, Amber Walter, joining us online. Is there anything you'd like to cover before we begin?
Hi, everyone. Can everybody hear me okay? Good. All right. I'm sorry I can't be there in person today. I just could not make that work in my schedule, but I appreciate Josh helping me out with trying to chair remotely, and my vice chair. I saw Michelle in the room there, so I appreciate and I know they'll be helpful. If I can't see all the hands in the room, they can keep track of who wants to speak during the meeting and help me out. So anyway, I'm happy this is my first meeting being chair, and so bear with me, but I'm excited to get to know everybody. I know we have some new HAB members, and that's very exciting, and I guess people got to go on a tour this morning, so I hope that was a great experience, and maybe we'll hear more about that later in the meeting. So, do we want to do introductions or some sort of roll call? Josh, do you want to start with folks that are in the room so everybody online can see who's there?
So I'll begin. My name is Josh Patnod. I support the HAB facilitation team. You'll be seeing a lot of me if you attend any of the meetings. We'll go this direction. Tom.
Hi, Tom Cecilia with Oregon Department of Energy.
Tim Kovas, Public at Large.
Rebecca Holland, Habitat.
Jim Doherty, Oregon Hanford Planning Board. Roberto Rico, EPA.
Ryan Miller, Ecology.
Anita Sandon, Ecology.
Dan Calloway, HMS Communications. Marianne Monarchy, HMS Communications, supporting DOE.
Lindsay Summers, DOE.
Brian Ivy, Citizen at Large.
Michelle Holt with the Benton Franklin Council of Governments and Vice Chair of this committee.
Richard Bloom with the City of West Richland.
Kathy Dubois, non-union, management.
Larry Brannick, Public at Large. Kevin Danby, representing Grant and Franklin County.
And introduce yourself.
Mia Burke, Hanford Challenge.
And on the edges of the room.
Oh, sure. Hanford Ecology.
And I'll go down the list online. So, when I call your name, please be ready to open your microphone, starting with Patrick.
Patrick Conrad, HMS External Affairs.
Dan.
Dan Solitz, member of the public.
Matt.
There we go. Matt Hendrickson, Oregon Department of Energy.
Jim Tonka.
Jim Conka, Tridec.
Lena.
Dana McFadden, Ecology.
Jesus.
Hi, Jesus Mota, Dean for Career Technical Education at Columbia Basin College.
Therese.
Hi, Cerise Peck with the Department of Energy, Public Affairs.
Just joining us just a moment. Are you ready to introduce yourself?
Oh, Ryan, you were a little hard to understand. I think Simone Ryan was asking you just to introduce yourself.
Hi, I am Simone Anter. I am the alternate for Columbia Riverkeeper. Thanks, Amber, for the translation.
No, right. It was just a little garbled there, Ryan. Just a little bit.
I think that
Or
was
I'm
Josh.
sorry, not Ryan. I was blaming Ryan. I meant Josh.
You're good, Amber.
The product of the distortion. If we miss anybody following them, they'd like to introduce themselves. Alright, with that, I think we're ready to move on.
Well, and I'm
So-
Amber Amber Waldrop. I represent Heart of America Northwest on the Hanford board, one of the public interest seats. So first item on the agenda, and this was upcoming TPA public involvement activities. And I guess that's to hear from the three agencies about any upcoming public involvement opportunities that we should know about as a committee and how we can be involved. So Ryan, I see you nodding, Ryan. I'm going to pick on Ryan.
Well, I'm gonna pick on Dana. Dana, do you want to cover any TI stuff with the ecology?
Sure. We're just passing the nodding around. So right now for ecology, the comment period that we have open is NewCon. It's wrapping up tomorrow, and that is the thermal oxidation system phase 3 draft research development and demonstration permit. And that's on our comment period page if you would like to comment on that. That's the only thing we have scheduled. Rev 9 is still coming. And as soon as we know when it's coming, we will let everybody know. But yeah, that's that. Oh, and Permafix Northwest is coming early next year also. So that's what we've got.
Thank you. And also in the room to present, we have Dana for DOE.
Josh, if you don't mind, since we have so many new people, I'll take a minute and just walk everyone through how to find this on the Hanford.gov website. So if you're looking for all the public involvement opportunities and the way to comment, we've tried to make it as handy as possible. So you just go to Hanford.gov. So I might pulling that up and putting that on, sharing it out for the group.
In process.
Thank you. No, I've gotten to the point where if I can't find it on my phone, I certainly can't find it in my pile of printed papers anymore. COVID helped me with that. And I'm really glad to see all of the folks here. Welcome to all the new members. This is one of my favorite things to do the whole year is come visit absolutely. All right, so as you go to Hanford.gov, if you go to the calendar you'll see those gray lines at the top on the far right. There's one that says calendar. If you click on that, that's our events calendar. And you can see, you can search by year, month, or date. So the active comment periods are highlighted in yellow. The HAB meetings are in that nice green color, and the public meetings are in red. The HAB meetings and the public meetings are all open to the public, but just so you can easily find them. And Josh, would you mind clicking on one of those, just anyone you'd like to, just so folks can see? So this will be an example of our public meeting tonight, and we'll hope you all come. We'll go back to WSU, and if you'll scroll down, Josh, you can see there's the link here about how you can submit your comments, a link to join the meeting, and if you scroll a little further, you'll see we've attached the placemat, and then a little, probably within the next hour, we'll attach the presentation there. So you can pretty much find everything on the events calendar that you need. And then, would you mind going back to the PI webpage? So then if you just reverse out of that, go back to our homepage, or anywhere you can see in the top right-hand corner, there's a search bar. And you just type in public involvement opportunities. It's going to take you to this webpage. And then I printed out a copy of that for you here. And so if you'll just scroll down to that, we'll quickly run over what's new. So our latest endeavor is on Monday the 7th, we launched the Tankside Cesium Removal System Mechanical Connections 60-day retro comment period. As you see in the next column at the bottom, that corresponding public meeting is coming up October 30th, and we'd love to have your input on that. Right below that, in the public comment periods, you'll see that we launched the Hanford Site 5-year plan feedback period on September 30th. And then we worked with Lindsay and the HAB group to align tonight's public meeting at 5:30. So the majority of people who are attending in person can come to that meeting tonight. So it's one of our better meetings. We'll run over the placemat. So you can really look at what's planned ahead. The placemat includes 6 years, so don't have that confusion. We like to put the year we're in along with the next 5 years ahead. So that's why there are 6 years in there. And it gives a little bit of an overview. And then, of course, in the materials, we have a web page devoted to this where you can go back and look at the past several 5-year plan activities and meetings. So that would be tonight. And then the thing that we just recently concluded was a 60-day retro public comment period on the Tankside Cesium Removal hose and hose transfer. We had that meeting earlier this summer. It was in August. So that's all I have. We have the cleanup priorities comment period coming in the spring, and I don't have anything else firmed up to queue up beyond the couple that we're running right now, but it looks like per normal, we'll have several things taking shape. So that's all I have unless there are questions.
Do you have any questions this morning?
I don't have a question. The questions first.
I was just gonna make a quick comment, when Dan, I know we have some new HAB members today, and we'll do our best with the acronyms. So RCRA is the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act.
Thank you.
The public meetings, are they recorded and accessible on the site?
Yes. If we go back to the events calendar, I don't mean for you to have to do that, Josh. When you click on that meeting, if you'll scroll to the bottom where we put the agenda, the presentation. We try to do it as quickly as we can, but it usually takes a day or two to render it because they're always at least an hour long. We post the recording right there on the public events calendar. So you can always go back and see it there.
So we also have Rebecca for EPA. Is there any public involvement to discuss from your agency?
No, we do not. Thank you, Beth.
Any questions for any representatives in the room or online? Raise your hand in teams to get a question.
If anyone else doesn't have a question, I had a quick question. I thought that we had earlier this year, there had been a discussion about the DOE's NEPA supplemental analysis for the tank agreement, removing waste from tanks. I thought that USDOE had said that the supplemental analysis would be done in January, and there had been a discussion, I thought, Ryan, about Ecology saying there'd be public involvement around that. So I was just wondering where we were with that.
Yeah, I believe you're referencing part of the holistic agreement.
Sorry.
No, you're good. By the end of this year, early next year, DOE was going to be making a decision on the grouting location and like transportation routes for that waste. So is kind of written out in the letters that we sent the last 2 weeks, which I know you got a copy of. The Department of Energy's conveyed, and I don't want to speak for energy. I'm just referencing their letter that they wrote a while back, that they're planning to complete public engagement with that decision making. I think the current plans by the end of this year, early next year. I'm not sure if Dan has anything beyond that, but I know it's not in the room from DOE, but that's my understanding. So that'll be later this year.
Yes, I agree with everything Ryan said. I believe that's the process that was in the letter. It's just still taking shape. So we don't have firm dates, firm plans like that yet.
Okay, but we're expecting maybe in the next month or so to learn more about when and how people could provide input.
Well, when they decide to move forward with that, per always, there'll be a pre-notice, a 30-day public notice in advance. And on every time we can, we give more than 30 days advance notice. So when that's really starts queuing up and taking shape, we'll make sure we get a pre-notice out at least 30 days in advance for people to, you know, think about the plans, be aware that it's happening.
Okay, just wanted to, yeah, I just wanted to flag that as something, you know, as a public involvement opportunity in general, but also for the Hanford Advisory Board too, to be able to provide input if it's possible.
I was gonna ask, is that through the registration process, you guys register notification in 30 days? That's normally the put.
Yes, and has everyone been taught that you have members how to sign up for electronic distribution?
There's just one thing we haven't talked about a lot today. There is a distribution list that you can sign up for from the tri-party agencies, and we can, might be good, Josh, maybe we send that out to the, oh, I know it's actually on the weekly Hanford email or HAB email that Josh sends out, that there's actually the link that you can go sign up to the TPA notifications. So once that goes out, today's Wednesday, tomorrow, you can go to that link and there's actually a sign up sheet where you can sign in your email address on Gov Delivery, and that'll give you, all of the public involvement notifications for like comment periods. So that link will be on the HAB happenings email that Josh sends out.
But these, do they go out to the federal register or something broader?
Oh, federal register. I'll defer to you maybe for that one. For ecology comment periods, we don't put things in the federal register because we're the state, but, I'm not sure, Dan, if you.
No.
Okay, so,
I guess.
So one thing to sort of add on that, if the agencies could, when they're thinking about when they start that comment period, look at the HAB's calendar and make sure there's a full board meeting sometime in that window. So, if there is advice we can get as part of the comment record, that would be really great. Not trying to delay anything, but just if it works out, that would be great.
and also for clarification that it'll be the U.S. Department of Energy's comment period. It's not going to be a TPA comment period.
Okay, even though it's on holistics, it's on the supplement.
It's DOE decision and their comment period, yeah.
But we'll take that recommendation back.
So anytime we can align involved with the HAB, particularly when the HAB's in town, we want that. We want the HAB and the public to be involved and participate as best as possible. I mean, my worst nightmare is to have something where we don't have participation. So I want the more the merrier. So thank you.
And so just to clarify, there would be involvement, there'd be the notice that would come out, like you're talking about, the pre-notice, and before the supplemental analysis is issued. You'd be taking comments before you issue the supplemental analysis?
I believe so, but I don't want to speak incorrectly for DOE. That's my understanding. Is that your understanding, Ron?
I believe so, but yeah, again, this is, yeah, I'll defer to TV. I don't want to say something.
And Amber, I don't have the answer for you, but I will take that question back and I will make sure to close the loop as soon as I have a response.
Okay, great. Is there
Yes,
any other? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
One piece to add, the NEPA essay doesn't require public involvement. It requires a decision and then that to be posted to a website. The public involvement is something electively that we want to do as a good practice, and so that's what's still taking shape.
Great. Appreciate that. Thank you. All right. Any other questions about upcoming TPA? Really, I know this was a non-TPA, but it was a DOE related question. Is there any other comments or questions on an upcoming TPA public involvement activities?
Well, Dan, Roberta, I think the only TPA thing right now is this is the actual holistic agreement stuff. That comment period's over though. It ended September 1st and the agencies are currently, getting together and working on responding to comments and doing that process. I don't have an exact time frame I can share right now of when that might come out, but just know that we're diligently working on it. So that's the only TPA thing I can think of.
No, that's a very good point. We'll want to get that response to comments document produced and issued. The goal is to send that out the first week of December. If it isn't produced, our public involvement plan calls for us to get that out within 90 days of the conclusion of the comment period. But that's a good try. If we can't get it out then, our practice in the past has been to issue a public notice stating it will be further than 90 days and perhaps to give some guesstimate on when it might be coming out or some reasoning. So we will either issue it the first week of December or put out some kind of communication about that it might take a little bit longer. That you're.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, the only other TPA thing outside of that is gonna be the public involvement survey, which we'll talk about, in this meeting. So we'll hold on that one.
So, question for TPA and then a shameless plug. There's some milestone discussions happening, and that would result in a milestone change package I was here for M16 and M15. Is there a timeline for that, for when the comment period might be?
Yeah, I don't have a response for that. I can get back to Dave Eaton on that.
I think it also depends on the magnitude of the changes and stuff too, if it on public involvement. But yeah, I think Roberto will follow up with Dave.
Okay, and then shameless plug. The HAB has an issue manager team right now working on cleanup and priorities advice for next year, which is for cleanup priorities for 2027. We don't have an issue manager team lead, but we have an issue manager team. So if you want to join the issue manager team and especially after tonight's 5-year plan meeting, really get engaged early, now would be the time to do it. Because that advice comes out in February, usually.
Yes, there's a full board meeting in February, where typically the board will advise.
Great.
Any other questions? Public involvement, folks.
Well, then, if there's no other questions, I think the next item is getting input on the public involvement survey. Am I right?
Dr. Ryan.
Alrighty, well, let me share my screen. I'll provide a bit of a primer. Okay, so I've come to you, I think 2 or 3 times in the last year to talk about this topic. So I'll just provide a brief recap, especially because I know we have a lot of new folks in the room. So every year, the tri-party agreement agencies send out a survey that kind of asks the public and folks that take part in Hanford public involvement to get their feedback on the tri-party on the public involvement that the agencies conducted for that year. So, for example, we'll send out the survey for 2024 and early 2025. So it's looking back on the previous year's public involvement. And then once we get the survey results kind of in, we evaluate them and come up with a report. This is part of the Hanford Public Involvement Plan. It's outlined that we follow this process. Now, Ecology conducts this survey on behalf of the TPA agencies, and this is because I know that there's some more federal restrictions and things with like surveys, and so it's just easier for the state to do it. So the state does it on behalf of the agencies, but we still work very closely with DOE, DPA on working on questions, working on the report, but we actually send the survey out for the public response and all that kind of stuff. So last year we sent out our survey, and we sent it out from January 3rd to February 16th. So I anticipate for next year, for 2025, for the 2024 survey, we'll send it out probably about the same time frame, early January. And then to invite the public feedback on our survey. And the purpose of the meeting today was I was going to just quickly run through last year's survey, just so we can go through the questions that we listed. And what we're really looking for is just if there's any informal feedback, suggestions that anybody might have on maybe what to include on this upcoming survey, since we're about to undertake the process of kind of drafting this year's survey and kind of getting it ready to send out. So it's figured it's October. We're going to probably work on it in the next couple months, and it's just a perfect time to come talk to the COE to see what kind of feedback you guys might have about next year's survey. So
before you get started, did everybody grab Ryan's papers off the table over there? Yeah. You can have mine, Michelle.
Okay, and then what Lindsay's referencing is we have the kind of the quick summary version of it, which has just the report that we issued, and then it just lists the questions that were on last year's survey. We didn't include all of the written responses in all the Spanish version, just because that'd be like a 40 to 50, 45 page document. So this is kind of just the quick and easy version that you guys can look at. If you want the full version, it's available on our website, and you can take your leisure reading. But yeah, thank you, Lindy. Okay, with that being said, I'm just gonna go down to the questions here in a second, but I wanted to take a quick second and just pause to see if anybody had any questions on just the survey in general, you know, what it is, anything like that. Okay, so, yeah.
What, I guess my question comes down to is, so Ecology does this survey, or is this tri-party survey?
Yeah, it's a tri-party survey, but we conduct it on behalf of all three agencies.
So for the tri-parties, what, you've got the information, what action do you expect to take?
Yeah, great question. So actually, if you go to the,
I mean, I look at the first question and immediately comes to my mind, especially something that the current administration keeps using this word of disinformation. That where do you look first for information about Hampton cleanup? The number one answer is stakeholder organization. Are you looking at what's in that?
yeah, so we look at all of those.
Nothing about, you know, the stakeholders that are here, but are we looking at what they're putting out as compared to what the reality comes back? I mean, I look at the responses, most of the responses aren't for the local community. And so I represent West Richland, 20% of our households are contractor or DOE employees. And we are one of the communities closest to the site. I doubted many of our constituents actually participated in the survey, but I guess, you know, that we're talking communication here. What are people hearing? So I'll bring that up.
Yeah, I think there's a couple different questions there. I think one question you posed was if we're tracking what like other groups and agencies are putting out for public like information stuff.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly, you know, try to, you know, keep track of what everybody's sending out about Hanford. At least I speak for me. I'm sure that DOE and EPA does the same, where we're just tracking all the notices and stuff that go out. When it comes to the questions, I think we'll get into some more of it a little bit later, but we do look at the results that we get from the survey. And obviously, I think we have one thing that we're trying to do every year is to increase the people that respond to the survey. So this year, this most recent year, I think what we saw was we had, and I think once you look at the demographic breakdown, Dana put together a nice map that shows, you know, kind of where people responded to the survey. I think we had the three biggest bubbles were over in this area of Washington, on the western side of Washington, and then down in the Portland Hood River area. So I think what we're really trying to do, especially with our, you know, every year we do the surveys, try and get as many people to respond to it from, you know, as many areas as we can, but for anybody that's involved in Hanford. So, you know, a couple of years ago, when we first started doing the survey after COVID, we had, I think, 86 responses. And then last year we had, it's on here somewhere, we had 225 responses. So we're looking to keep on building that momentum and really trying to get, you know, a lot of responses from anybody and everybody that's interested in Hanford, but also people that maybe might not try Hanford. So we want to make sure that we're reaching people that maybe aren't getting Hanford information. So the short kind of answer to some of those questions is, you know, we're tracking it. We're also trying to, you know, distribute the survey to as many people as we can. And so that's why I think when we send out next year's survey, we really encourage, especially the HAB members, for you to bring the survey back to your constituencies and to really encourage them to take it and share it with their, you know, people that they know. That way we can try and get, you know, a lot of local responses, a lot of responses from, you know, Oregon, a lot of responses from all the people that have an interest in Hanford. Okay, so
before we go on, can you give a little verbal clarification on what the two columns are regarding and the one just, it tells what information being presented. Give me some better.
Yeah, I'm gonna go down to the questions. I can go through them. Yeah. So last year's survey, the questions we answered, and look away for a second while this is loading. Okay, so the first question we asked was just asking people that took the survey, where do they look first for information about Hanford cleanup? So you'll see that there's different colors for the different responses. So, you know, we've got like U.S. Department of Energy as an information source, ecology, EPA, news organization, social media, stakeholder organization, word of mouth, and just other that's not specified. And so the responses you'll see just correspond to the dots. So, you know, so blue is Department of Energy, orange is is ecology. And so we've got the bar graph that shows the data, but then next to each answer, we also have the exact number of responses to each one of those answers to that question. Similarly, for question 2, we asked, how do you prefer to receive information about the Hanford site? Which was, we had the options again of email distribution list. Yeah.
I'll go back and look at that again. What are the headers for these two? This is a percentage of respondees.
This is, yeah, good question. This is the number of respondents to the question. So you'll see the red there, that is news organization, and you'll see that on the bar graph, it goes up to like 79, 80. So that's the number of people that that's not a percentage, that's the actual number of respondents that answered that question. Did that answer your question?
And this is a percentage.
Question 1, that's all just the number of responses. So you'll see the numbers down the side, that's all just the number of responses, same on the bar graph. It's showing the same data. Okay. And then same for question 2, that's just the numbers, that's not a percentage. Yeah, so question 2 was, how do you receive information about the site? So email distribution list, mail, searching for information directly directly with the agencies, I believe. Social media, mass media, so you can see the results there. And again, I'm just going through the questions we asked. What we really wanted to talk about today was suggestions for next year's survey. I'm happy to answer more questions though. The next question 3 was, for the following statements, please select the option you agree most with. And so this one's more of the percentage answer. So you'll see that we had a number of statements that people answered on a scale of strongly disagree to neutral to agree to strongly agree. And those statements were: public notices, fact sheets, and publications are easy to understand. Websites are easy to navigate. Website content is easy to understand. Social media posts are engaging and easy to understand. And I believe my input helps influence Hanford decisions, and those are in percentages. So you'll see each one of those color kind of blocks there are a different percentage. So, that red up here is, yeah. So I think that gray is kind of like a 40-50%. And I think our online version has got some more specific percentages. So you can actually hover over and get the exact percentage. This is just a printed out version of it. We also asked a couple free responses that people could just write, what they wanted on the questions. Those questions were: how can the tri-party agencies improve website or social media content? Please share specific examples and ideas of how you think public information and involvement can be improved. And if you don't usually pay attention to Hanford issues, why? And you'll see on the document you have that you actually don't have those answers because, again, it takes up about 40 or so pages once we add in all of those responses. So just for the sake of saving some trees, we didn't include those, but if you want to look online, we actually have the full report that you could read through all of the written responses, and we didn't alter those at all. They're copy and pasted directly as people wrote them. So then there's some emojis, there's some misspellings and typos, but we just want to make sure that we weren't, like altering people's messages. So we have those questions, which were the free response questions. And following those questions, we got to some specific meeting information questions. So the first question here was, do you prefer to attend meetings online or in person? This is again representative of the amount of people that answered the survey for the numbers there, but the pie chart, that's in percentages. So you'll see that the large percentage prefers online, then it's in person, and then no preference for that one. And then question 8 was, did you attend any public meetings for the Hanford site in 2023? Similarly, we have the number of respondents in the numeral form there, and then on the right side, we have the pie chart. Oh, sorry, I zoomed in. The one thing to note for this question is if you were taking the survey online and you answered no to this question, then we skipped you. There's a survey skip logic that skipped you past the public meeting questions because it didn't make sense to ask you about your experiences attending Hanford public meetings if you didn't attend a Hanford public meeting. So for the Hanford public meetings, the questions we asked were similarly, we had the Likert scales above. So for the following statements, please select the option you most agree with. So same scale, strongly disagree, neutral, agree, strongly agree. And these statements were speakers were clear, coherent, and easy to follow. Quality of the Q&A session was good. Quality of meeting facilitation was good. And our 10th question was, did you provide public comment after attending the meeting? And we worded it this way because there were actually there were no public meetings in 2023 that actually held like a formal testimony component to the meeting, which is why we worded it that way. This green section is I provide comment during like a Hanford Advisory Board meeting because that's the only meeting that was held, but the only meetings held in 2023 that had like an actual formal public comment opportunity. Otherwise, you had the opportunity to submit, written comments before, during, and after the public meetings. Question 11, did you provide feedback to the agencies following the meeting using the online evaluation form? So our answers there were yes, no. I didn't realize there was an evaluation form. Our other meeting question was, were reasonable accommodations available at the meeting, such as language translation, disability access, etc.? We'll see the answers there. And I will step in real quick here and say, we recognize one question we're going to try and add a clarification next year was, from people that said no, we realized we didn't ask a question that said what accommodation wasn't available. So on next year's survey, we're going to add that question in, especially if you said no to question 12, what accommodation wasn't available. That way we know, what people didn't have access to. So that we recognize that's a question that we need to include next year. The 13th question, or 13th and 14th questions were also free responses. One was just asking, do you have any feedback or recommendations based on your experience with the meetings you attended? And then question 14 was just, what is your zip code? And that gave us the data for showing the people that took the survey and where they came from. And again, the majority of those people came from here in this region, over on the west side of the state, greater Seattle area, and then down in the Portland Hood River area. But we had some dots pop up across the country. We had one that was a zip code for like a Navy ship or something crazy. So we had a couple scattered ones, but again, largely in Oregon and Washington for our responses. And then we just had demographic questions, which I'll go through these a little more quickly, but we had, we asked, the respondents' age, their highest level of education, race, ethnicity, household income range, and that was it. So that's kind of the quick run through of the questions that we asked last year. Again, happy to answer any questions anybody has, although I wanted to take a second too and see if Roberto or Dana had any kind of comments or anything you guys are looking for as we work on the next iteration of the survey, and we can get into a discussion maybe. You guys have anything?
Thank you for your hard work. Ecology works very hard on this every year. They collaborate with us. It's something due to realities that we can't do, so thank you.
So we're going to appreciate Ecology's hard work on this. And we look forward to your feedback on this survey so that we can do better next year.
Brian, I have a question. Thanks for the survey. It was well done. Was this only distributed online? That it wasn't hand distributed at meetings or mailed to specific people or given to tribes to distribute or?
Correct. We didn't physically distribute like a physical version of the survey.
Isn't that skewing the survey or is it? I don't know,
Yeah, I think most surveys you see today are going to be virtual only, because I think just the logistics too with handing out hundreds of surveys and then getting hundreds of responses, then transcribing every single survey too. So I think majority of surveys you see today are online only. That being said, I can share some information about our distribution that we did for the survey. It's listed on like one of the first pages of the report here, but we did a big, we announced it through our Gov delivery. I believe we did a news release, if I'm not mistaken. I did a lot of direct outreach. I reached out to like the cities of Pasco, Richland, Kennewick, and asked them to see if their governments could share it. I know the city of Pasco actually made social media posts sharing it on their channel, which was super awesome. And I reached out to like the Tri-Cities Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, a bunch of other folks. I know I'm pretty sure I shared it directly with tribes. And if I didn't, I'll make sure to do it this year. But so
it seems to me that the tribal response or the native response is terribly low considering they're a large minority in this area, which is the most important area. And I'd like to find a way to boost that up. I don't know how, but something,
Yeah, I think that's something that we actually acknowledged in our report, is that not just specific to one group, but if you look at the survey results, the largest kind of respondents had a high level of education. So, like a 4-year degree, a doctorate. They were, Caucasian, white, older, retired, and that's we're really trying to get the good
people like me.
We're trying to get a good diversity of responses. We live in a really diverse area, not just in Tri-State, but across the state. So that's something we're striving to do. And
but this green bar is just obscene. It's so responsive there.
Yeah.
That's
it's a big focus for us. We made a bigger effort last year to try and improve it, and obviously, I think we have a lot of room to grow still.
Well, yeah, or this is an accurate survey, and that's just what it is. It's hard to tell. I don't analyze surveys. There's other people that do that, and so I don't know. But thanks for the effort there. That's good.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
I found it interesting what he said, isn't that kind of skewing the survey? Because if you look at the age, you look at, it's 65 or older, and a lot of people will say, well, you know, the older generation, they don't know how to use the internet. They don't know how to use- You know what I'm saying?
No,
They're not
you're
technologically advanced, and so I find that interesting
Yeah.
itself.
No, that's very,
It's 65 or older.
yeah, you guys have very good comments about that. That's, you know, that we're definitely trying to be mindful of, because you're right, you know, if you have, if it heavily skewed one direction, it can certainly, you know, skew survey results, just like, you know, Larry said, especially for the survey geeks out there, it certainly can. So that's another reason why we're trying to get, you know, as many people to respond, you know, get diversity of people to respond. Absolutely.
And it looks like Josh has got a list of questions.
We have a queue of questions building in the room. We'll go Ed, Tom, Shell, Pam. And if I missed you, be sure to give me a wave. The more animated you are, the more likely I am to notice you. If you're online, you can raise your hand or enter a comment in the Teams.
Okay, and so, and again, very nice work, but is there any analysis of the data itself? We've got the survey, and then my question is, and then what? So we have this, like you're saying, I'm not an expert at analyzing data like this, but to extract efforts out of this, just to have the data itself is.
No, exactly. So we do look at this, you know, when we get the survey results, the group of us, we get together and we look at it and the agencies analyze it the best that we can. And that's where we come up with, you know, we have the list in the report that talks about some of the actions that we're looking to take. And then in addition, the agencies, we each individually go and take our own actions if we want to as well, looking at the survey responses, whether it's the written surveys or the data. I will say, as far as just looking at like all the raw data and doing the greater kind of survey analysis, we haven't done that the last few years, just because we haven't had the capacity to. But I know like my team, for example, we're going to be fully staffed again, which is super exciting. And then we had an event start recently. We have our other position starting in like 2 weeks, and that position is actually the position that's like the lead on the survey. So we'll have an actual dedicated position to the survey. So I think we're looking to do some more of that kind of stuff. But we do get together as agencies and look at the results and evaluate them and provide some actions that they look at doing to improve our public involvement. So we do take at it, look at it and learn from it and try to improve what we did.
And then you're gonna share that back with us when you do that.
Yeah, and actually, we had a greater discussion earlier this year, when the survey results went out, I believe in spring this year, like March or April, and we actually came to the same committee earlier in the year. We had a very robust discussion where we actually walked through the survey results in even more detail than we did today. So, okay, that's something that we definitely want to do is, so when we get these survey results for the next year's survey, definitely come back to the HAB and talk to you guys about it. Okay, thank you.
Tom.
Just an idea for the demographics questions. It might be worth adding a option for someone to self-select as an environmental justice concern or environmental justice community member. It's a quick and easy answer that would.
Or maybe broader than that, just conservation.
Specifically because of federal requirements for EJ 40 and stuff like that, it'd be good to have an idea of how the outreach is reaching environmental justice communities.
Thanks for the suggestion, Tom.
Sure. And I think you.
Oh, go ahead.
Two items. Number one, items 4 and 5. They'll detect the respondents. There's a statement people make. Do you have plans to do some kind of analysis for those specifically?
Yeah, so similar, I think that's actually also where we get some of the actions that we try and look for some common themes and stuff. And I know that you can also do, like qualitative analysis. You can actually pull the responses and dump them into some like AI software and I can actually see like patterns of comments and stuff. So we didn't go like crazy in the weeds with that, but we did go, like I said, we got together as agencies, looked at the written responses and some of our TPA responses, reflect the data, but also the responses. But that's where I think we're also really going. And I know I don't want to speak for Roberto or Dan and DOE, but I know at college we go and actually read through all of the written responses and we highlight that definitely some ideas for public involvement that we think are something that we can look at doing and are capable of doing. So we do look at like every single one of those and really try to pull some great ideas for public involvement and how we can improve. So I can say that we do go look at those and we do take those to heart.
Okay, we're very impressed with those two.
Yes.
Secondly, having to do with following up with Tom's statement. Might be interested in
have an item where you say, are you involved in some way with the Hanford enterprise, or you work there or whatever? That might be a proxy for how much you know about Hanford.
Yeah, so yes, if you work on site or have some kind of involvement with Hanford regularly. I think we used to have a question to that effect years ago, so maybe we look at adding something to that effect back in. Yeah, I think we had it in previous pre-COVID iterations.
You're right. I think we had some discussion and maybe that are showing that. Question from John, if you make a comment.
Well, and to follow up on that, I could see where if somebody did work there, they might, be reluctant to say that they work there. On the other hand, it would be really telling to understand whether the responses are, preaching to the choir. I understand what's happening because I am already affiliated with the contractors in some way versus truly a general member of the public, and how do we improve that communication? The one thing that I was kind of looking for, and I had to go back into the summary and I could pull out a little bit, but it was that kind of year-over-year comparison for difference. So as staff, if you are taking this information and making adjustments in response to it, it would be good to be able to compare the year-over-year to see, did it help? You do get that for the number of respondents, and obviously an adjustment was made, and there were, more than double the respondents from year over year. That's great. But in terms of how people are getting their information one year to the next, or where it's coming from, those might be good ones to have. Is your effort getting you what you wanted?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one example I can think of that we actually saw when we did the request this year, I keep looking at Dan and Roberto because obviously I worked with them on it, but we actually didn't include this in the report, but let me scroll down to the public meeting questions. I think some of our previous public meeting questions, we had similar questions that, asked if folks thought, speakers were clear, coherent, easy to follow, quality Q&A session was good, quality meeting facilitation was good. And I think previous iterations of this question, the answer was actually a lot more neutral, disagree, strongly disagree. And this year's survey, you can see that there's a pick up quite a bit from neutral, agree, strongly agree, which I think is reflective of some of the actions that we did take to kind of improve our public meetings is kind of the hybrid kind of world, extended on. So I think you're right, maybe trying to look and see if there's some kind of comparison might be valuable.
Mm-hmm. The other thing I think it's helpful too is, and I think this has been mentioned a little bit in other responses, is that if you do, as agency members, choose to make a change in how you're doing things in response to this, even just a simple list of, hey, in response to the last year's survey, we did A, B, C, D, and E differently this time. And then it helps the rest of us go, so what'd you do with that information? You feel like, hey, we actually did something with what we heard, which I think is a good validation for other people as well, that like, I didn't just send a message out to the ether, nothing happened.
Thank you. All right, on Stan.
Pam, why did you do?
Well, just to follow up on a couple of things that have already been said. Question 16, what is your highest level of education? It is staggering to see the graduate degrees and even the doctoral degree, 25 people. So I think we're getting retired Hanford employees and retired P&L employees. So I would break the question down into, do you currently work at Hanford? Are you retired from Hanford? And I'm pleased because I think these are people in our community that still care and are engaged and willing to respond to something like this. And it's very positive.
Our president didn't pass HAB members.
Could be, a lot of them leave and they're really tired of it, so I'm not sure.
But these are questions that speak to the representativeness of these data. Are you selecting a subset of the population, or are really representing the general population here? And they'd like to know that.
Currently have a queue of 4, Tim, Dan, Richard, and Tom. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So Pam took the window of my silver on the first half. If I had to guess, yeah, it's retired Hanford workers based off of age, education, income level, clear as day. So yeah, I think that's a challenge of how you break that mold, which is easier said than done. One of my thoughts would be, and this might be opening the can of worms that you guys don't necessarily want, but I'll put it out there, is to have a field in there to say, what kind of briefings, presentations would you like to hear about? You know, a lot of, I think, what tri-party agreement or tri-party parties and DOE is what are you legally bound in doing for open public comment and whatnot. But even trying to solicit, what are people interested in? What do people want to know more about to be engaged and to provide comment and interest in what's happening out at the site. So again, that might be opening the can of worms of God only knows what kind of hearings and presentations people want to hear from, but you have 225 people answering the survey, you might as well ask, you know, what would get you to come to a meeting?
Yeah, absolutely. I think some of the free responses to some of the questions, you know, talk about some of that, but you know, there wasn't a direct question asking that as well. I think you're getting that too. So yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Dan Saltz online, your question.
Yes, let me move to another room. Man just showed up in my going nuts. This may come under accommodation, but what if you could ask people what their visual and oral experience is of these meetings, and you know, were there room sounds, echo sounds in the room? Can you see people clearly on the camera? That sort of thing, and you know, in reference, you could probably check out a meeting of the National Academy of Science, Engineering, and Medicine's radiation study boards. Their last meeting, the audio was just spot on, and I don't know how they did it, but if you could start asking folks, maybe under the accommodation section, about how their audio and visual experience was, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think I tracked that. Sorry, there's just some ironically that there's some garbling that we heard. But I think we tracked that is asking some kind of question or clarification about how, like, for those that attended online, you know, how was the experience if the audio was bad or clear? So I heard that. Thank you, Dan.
Richard, go ahead.
I guess twofold. I mean, you know, public involvement, being on city council, we're very lonely. Actually, our last city council meeting, we had 0 people there.
My worst nightmare.
Well, I mean, no, but that's normal. And so, whereas we start talking about marijuana in the city and the room's full. And, but if you look at the survey and you start the first question and you don't care about Hanford, why would you take the survey? I mean, you know, so I guess the question comes down to is what do we want to, I mean, what do you want to find out? Do you want to find out that if you are informing the public adequately? I mean, I think that's what the intent of public involvement is are they informed? And so maybe that's the first question you should ask. You know, do you feel you're being appropriately informed about Hanford? Okay. And then the second question is, do you really want to be involved? You know, if you're informed and you don't want to be involved, I'll let the process, you know, I trust the oversight of ecology and EPA against DOE, and I'll let them work it out. I mean, that could be and so, and if they don't want to be involved, you end the survey. You know, I mean, you could ask the demographic questions, but if you want to expand the survey, and I can tell you, 17,000 people, 6,000 voters in West Richland. Nobody wants to be involved if we were changing an ordinance I mean, nobody cares. They trust that the council will do it. So if you take that perception, ask simple questions, make it a simple survey for a person who really doesn't care. I mean, they trust the system, and that's what you want to know and prove that people trust the system, isn't it? I mean, I'm asking, those that want to chew on it, retirees want to know what's going on. They didn't get done the way I think it should be done. Yeah, you go through the rest of the questions. But, or, good God, nuclear is terrible, and that everything nuclear has to be bad. You know, well, they're gonna go ahead and be involved. That's their charter.
So if I'm hearing you right, the suggestion there is maybe start the survey with just a couple of those kind of
Very
high level
broad
questions.
questions, high level questions.
You have the skip logic that people that, you know,
Right.
they want to take it, they want, okay.
And that would expand your responses. A response that anybody off the street can answer. You even know where Hanford is? You know what it is? I mean, you know, anything of that nature, but if you're only getting responses to 221 people who are actually involved in complaining or worrying about what's happening at Hanford. And that's all you're getting at, but is your message getting out to the public? That's your real question. So,
Yeah, no, thank you.
And then Amber.
I just following up on what Michelle was talking about, sort of a change log idea, would also really help with the analytics and figuring out, we can't compare these two questions because the wording changed, so it's not really the same question anymore. So just as you're looking further down the road in transparency and looking at like past responses and comparing to the past, it'd be good to have that sort of change log for context.
Yeah.
And Amber.
Okay, taking myself off mute there. Yeah, I thought some of those suggestions about the Hanford worker, or if you're retired, I think that's valuable to put in the survey. I thought those were great suggestions. I think the survey, we've worked on this for years, and I think it's looking really good. And I want to appreciate all the work that Ecology does to make it accessible. So Ryan, just to clarify, earlier somebody asked, this is an online survey that people can click a little, when they click into the survey, they get to choose answers, right?
Correct. Yeah, it's an online survey.
Okay. Yeah, my biggest thing, I guess, to pivot a little bit is to expand it to the point that somebody made earlier about diversity of respondents. And I'm wondering if like every HAB member organization could, maybe we could have a conversation at the next HAB meeting about each HAB organizational member, like trying to make a commitment to send it out to their lists and membership lists. I think we all have a responsibility to get that out, to get more information back to our tri-parties. So it might be worth kind of organizing that a little bit. I know I think Hanford, Heart of America Northwest has probably sent it out before, but I think we need to be reminded to do it again. And, it's pretty easy to send it out in a newsletter or a link or a text message or what have you. So that's one way that we could all, especially new members on the HAB, could participate in getting more survey respondents. I think it would be interesting to kind of talk through what your outreach plan would be. I guess that's where really I'm more interested. I think the survey questions are pretty good. You could tweak them a bit, right? Make it longer or shorter. I think my biggest piece is I liked what you had to say about getting it out to the city of Pasco and some different organizations that have really large reaches to be able to send it out to people. So I don't know if Ryan, I know we're getting close to our 2:30 time here, but is this the appropriate time to talk about kind of how you and the other parties plan to reach out to different organizations, especially those that might connect with people that traditionally wouldn't fill out the survey and wouldn't be 65 plus?
Yeah, I think we would love feedback on ideas for outreach and stuff, but yeah, just like you said, I know we're coming up on time, so maybe if we have some extra time later, we can come back to it, but even if we don't have time today, if anybody wants to reach out to me or Ecology directly and share any thoughts or feedback you guys have on outreach for the survey, we would love to hear it. I will say what we did last year is outlined on the report, so you can see what we did at a high level last year, but again, we're looking to build and improve on it. And we, again, haven't sat down yet as a team and actually, again, started the hard work on finalizing this year's survey, because we want to get feedback, and we still have to finalize that in our outreach plan, so that's all still very early on, so now's a really good time if anybody has input to send it our way.
And Ryan, do you anticipate, when do you anticipate, I guess, sending out the 2024 survey?
I would say the last couple of years, we've sent it out very early January, like within the first couple weeks of the New Year's one was when it goes out, and then it goes out for, goes out for a month to 45 days.
So this could be a continued conversation at the next COE committee meeting.
Yeah, when's the next one? Sorry.
January.
January, for a good time. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's great. Let's put it on our agenda. So you said in this report, if I keep scrolling down, it tells all the different organizations that you reached out to that forwarded out the survey.
I don't think it includes all of the groups. It just says at the high level what we did. So it's on actually just the second page of the report, which I can actually just zoom up there real quick. Dan, avert your eyes, you get squeamish. So we did, so again, at a high level, what we did is we did like a blog / news release announcement that we sent out when the survey opens and we sent that out via our various Hanford information lists, as well as the Ecology's news distribution list. And we sent out another reminder announcement later on. We did regular social media posts on our accounts, which EPA Region 10, thank you, Roberto, shared on their accounts. And then we also shared the survey directly with the Hanford Advisory Board, the Governor's Office, tribes, various stakeholder groups, the local community. So when I say local community, that's where I meant like this. I reached out to cities of Pasco, Westland, Kennewick, that kind of stuff. So I don't have the exact specific list listed in this report. So it's just more of a high level overview. But again, I would very much welcome any feedback anybody has for us, now or after the meeting.
So I just wanted to step in really fast. We have our photographers waiting outside, and we have a hard start for that at 2:45. Yeah. So I don't know if we can, like you said, defer this conversation to if later on in the afternoon, if we have time available, if not to a future COE meeting.
Yeah, I agree. I want to be mindful of time, so. But thank you, everybody. The feedback's super, super helpful. I know we really appreciate it. I wrote down everything everybody said.
Yes, thank you.
One point of clarification before a break. Is there an online component to our next agenda item?
There is not.
Okay, so.
Yeah.
No. So for those of us in the room, we're going to break until 2:45. For those attending online, we'll be breaking until 3:15.
All right, we'll see you back at 3:15.
We do have our vice chair, and we might as well get started.
Okay. Well, all right. Well, in lieu of our chair, I will get us back on the road. And our next item of business is HAB Member Engagement and a discussion of how we can engage new and increase member participation.
Any of you may recall this is an item on your work plan, and we thought an open discussion would be a good place to start. Who has ideas in regards to HAB member engagement?
I have a problem.
Problem for good solve?
It seems to be that a lot of people on HAB belong to organizations, and that's a means for delivering the message. But us, public at large really don't have that. And so I would like people to consider means by which public at large can reach out. At a couple of conferences for instance, Audubon, I take some of the stuff that Lindsay was giving me, and I just sit there and let people pick it up as they will. I don't try to sell it. But as a person that's public at large, I don't have any idea how I would reach out, except the neighbors and.
The question, are we talking HAB members engaging with their constituencies or HAB members engaging with the HAB?
I think both of those are wonderful questions, but I think the original intent is how do we increase participation of the HAB members in what's happening in the HAB? One of those pieces of participation may be, how do I take what's happening at the HAB and take it back to my constituency group?
In the past, we've had HAB tchotchkes, like stress balls, coffee cups, and we've had Jeopardy, and the prizes was a HAB coffee cup type thing, right? So it seems like that type of thing could have head to door prizes, that could make it fun a little bit. It's not just business. It's a heavy topic, so.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the input. We do have limitations on certain things that we can quote unquote give away, like coffee cups and things like that. I do have like an exclusive, like we have Survivor mug that was passed along to me, so maybe that could be like a super fun prize for somebody.
That'd be good. The other thing that increases participation is food. I know Bob Suyama always used to bring a giant tote of candy to his meetings. And, you know, if we were able to get donations of food for some events, that, you know, best way to get to people's brains is through their stomach.
Point of clarification for the earlier question, the answer is indeed both for the HAB sewer plan, fiscal year 25. So we're going to open for discussion. We can talk and see which direction seems most logical to start in based on the ideas presented. Who else would like to share an idea? Go ahead.
New members, it's been discussed, they're clueless, they, you know, hearing the headlines, right? And, you know, especially if we're recruiting members from, never worked at Hanford, don't know Hanford. They went on the tour, my God, I didn't know that all was out there. Even people that, quote, worked at Hanford may have never left the federal building. And so, sometimes I've heard that the thing, I don't know enough to ask a question. And so the real key comes down to is having people feel comfortable asking questions that, you know, you don't know that, you know. What's the dose limit for everyone? That type of thing. You wouldn't have a clue, right?
Yeah.
But if you're a secretary out there, you're gonna get 100 mile room a year, maybe. Was that a lot? You know, so,
Yeah.
so there's a lot about the mystery of Hanford. And that's why, you know, when we talked about the survey before, a lot of, you know, the inferences, the people that are watching are those that know a little bit about what's going on out there. And as we try and recruit people from far and wide that never worked out there, don't even, you know, took a bus tour and that was about it as far as what's going on in Hanford, or they hear that, oh, another leaking tank's going on out there. Oh, that's terrible. Why do you have a leaking tank? You know, they're gonna be, gee, how do I get involved? How do I get engaged? What is it that they're, so maybe it's an aspect of defining what level of engagement a person can have, and how do they get more engaged?
Well, and we talked in the past about having sort of a HAB mentorship program where adopting the new members.
Yeah, or do you want a mentor?
Yeah, do you need Are you at the point where you don't feel like you're willing to ask the question publicly? And then who do you call as a resource to, get steered in the right direction for that question?
We talked briefly about that at the EMSSAB chairs meeting, and that is something that the Savannah River Board does. Mia, do you have anything to add to that?
Just that it's a mentorship program. I mean, I know we spoke about it for this year's orientation as well. And maybe something going forward. I know Susan and I talked about maybe not pairing two people together, but just having a list of names, contacts that are willing to be contacted, have members that have been on the board for a while that are willing to be contacted. And that being given to the new members as, you can reach out to any of these individuals and ask a question. So yeah.
And as we're building agendas, is there room that we should add something specific on there when we start getting our new members?
Yeah, and I'll say this again, I've said it many times before, is the best way to get people to be engaged is to have agendas that are worth engaging with, and we're getting a lot better with that. So thank you. But yeah, if you have agendas that no one cares about, no one's gonna engage. So that's always a very good constant improvement, and I think we're getting better.
So when I joined last year, my biggest problem was acronyms. And I'm wondering if some specific acronyms could be pulled and put on the agenda or, a page following that would engage the subject matter. I don't mean a list of 70 or something, but the major ones for new people. I'm still struggling with acronyms.
I've noticed that certain weekly emails that I get have added sort of a trivia question at the bottom. So we could add know your acronyms and a little call out box that says this one, and here's a link to the site, if we wanted to have acronyms, it's another thing to add.
Larry, I understand your pain, in my organization, we have a lot of acronyms as well, and we had a board chair challenge our staff to get through an entire board meeting without using a single acronym. And I tell you, it was challenging, but also really pushed us to be more mindful of the fact that some of us are in that information every day and recognizing that not everybody is. One of the points that you made, Richard, and even carry over from our last conversation too, is that notion of being mindful of the breadth of people who are on the HAB and understanding that there are people who have been affiliated with the Hanford or Hanford contractors or environmental agencies or what have you. That's their job, that's their career, that was their former career, and their level of knowledge and understanding is at a completely different level, and what they're interested in and curious about and how they want to engage is completely different than somebody who is truly just an open general member of the public who has never had any engagement with the HAB before. And so you talk about the tank waste committee and the level of discussion and knowledge that happens in that committee meeting. That might not be the best starting committee for somebody if they're coming with absolutely no level of knowledge. So if we can work on having elements of agendas that have a little more 101 information along with, along with the meat and potatoes, that may help too.
Towards that end, that's why we're trying to set up for the LIDS meeting is a summary of the Hanford environmental report, which, it's just this shows how much detail automatically gets generated and all the data associated with Hanford. And it truly comes back to what's the risk? There really is very, very little risk with Hanford, on a day-to-day basis. And so I think.
So thanks for the.
LIDS is Well, I'll ask, what's M16, M15 milestones?
Yeah.
Be careful. The
Yeah.
LIDS committee is the land use infrastructure disposal and safety.
And I'm only kidding, I can't even remember what COE is anymore either, but.
So, speaking of lids and risk, tomorrow morning, we're gonna be having a conversation about the advice that, the agency's asked us to bring about risk communication. High level, trying to just frame the question a little bit. And so, that's part of it. And as far as the, like, 101s, we have an IM team, issue manager team right now in this committee, the Community Outreach and Engagement Committee. Working on, it's called the IM team of three parts, because we've sort of grouped three things together. And one of those is sort of trying to figure out if there's a way to have a recommended reading list or a recommended YouTube video list, which has really good sections of 101s that people can get caught up with. And that's still under progress, and it probably won't be an official document or something, but maybe it fits with the mentor program.
Yeah. And, you know, some of you may have been here, I don't think anybody's here. I gave a presentation along with a couple of others on RAD Primer 101. What's RAD, what's airborne? And we had the meters and everything else out working with the Department of Health. And, you know, those kind of things are not something that, you know, DOE could easily pull together. But, you know, Waste 101, I put together that, but we've not done that. Anyway.
So what about the tour? Was that a great way for new members to get started?
Yeah.
I was gonna say, do we have some new members that wanted to talk about that?
Examples, I've never had any affiliation with Hanford. The closest is my two sons went to WSU here in Tri-Cities, and one lives 10 minutes from here. I came from private industry. I was a boss in my world for 40 years. I owned and managed 3 different businesses. But, you know, I'm heavily involved in Grant County at multiple levels, and this opportunity came up. And I've mentioned to many of you, my dad was on the atomic bomb group in the Army Air Corps on the island of Tinian when the Enola Gay took off. So we've always had a family fascination with the Manhattan Project. The good news is I assimilate fairly quickly, and the acronyms can drive me crazy. I've been a fire commissioner for 3 years, and they're still using acronyms that I have no idea, and I'm too embarrassed to ask. But all I care about is, are we balancing the budget? But anyway, I look forward to getting more involved and learning as we go, and I'm not intimidated.
I think, the mentor thing is that, you know, I mean, I adopted Mia and Tom and Matt and, you know, that they're trying to get rid of me all the while, but, you know, I think, you know, some subject matter, line, right, where, you know, it says if you need to know this, right, reach out to Tom, he can tell you these things, right, about Oregon or whatever they are. And so I think it can kind of work the mentor program. The other thing is, you know, I was past president of the Association of Oregon Counties. And we do what's called the county college, right? Where Oregon State University takes all the newly elected or the new members. And over a year's time, because as an elected official, you know, it took you 4 years to figure out what, you know, what you were supposed to be doing. And so they take a different thing every month and they sit down with them and they say, you know, here's what LIDS is, or here's, you know, here's what these things are. And, you know, put that in their toolbox and then, you know, show them what ecology does. That's a 2-day workshop. And by the end of that first year, they're well ahead. I mean, I would be way behind if I was, again, not bashful. I just, you know, reach out to these guys and I reach out to Matt, and I, you know, reach out to EPA and ask them, you know, or Max, and I, you know, just badger with questions. But, you know, still I'm going, you know, okay, what do I reach out to Lindsay for? What do I reach out to Mary Ann for? What do I reach out to Josh for? You know, that you kind of had that laid out there. I think that's helpful.
Okay.
Lindsay, can we get a new HAB member list that would include the females and phone numbers?
I believe Josh was working on that.
We were selecting permission from our new members, or those that like to update their contact info, and we will have that available at the next board meeting, printed form. Yeah, we can make it-
So back to Lindsay, your question of yesterday. I didn't go on last year's tour. But I went on my first orientation 2 years ago. But I found this year's tour was fantastic. The first year I did it, and we were coming out of COVID, and I think there were some other issues. We sat on the bus all day and drove around and saw good things. But yesterday, getting off the bus, going into the low waste treatment, facility, WTP, not to use acronyms.
Waste treatment
Well, it was fantastic to see, something that, I've lived here my whole life. I've worked public policy. As construction happened, you kind of wonder like, God, is that ever going to turn on? We're spending billions of dollars and it may never turn on. Like, to see it actually we haven't started processing yet, but a lot farther than I thought we would ever get in my lifetime. And granted, going into the room, you didn't see a whole lot you didn't see it happening, but to see like, oh yeah, there's where they talked about the air bubblers. And I've seen the videos, DOE has put together and the different animations of how it all works, but to be there and go, okay, I kind of see now how this is. So I thought yesterday was absolutely fantastic. Granted, it didn't make sense to get out of the bus when we were at end reactor. And that would make no sense. You drive around, you see kind of what they've done there, what they still need to, or what DOE still needs to do. But I thought, yeah, yesterday I learned a lot and saw amazing things.
I would like to actually give kudos though. I know Mia has focused on it a lot. Tom's focused on it a lot, and that idea of creating connections outside of the actual meeting. And I want to recognize that I think that's meaningful and it's important, and it can also be challenging. So I think we need to continue to focus on that. But I'm as guilty as anybody of sometimes not making myself available for the outside of the meeting things, and yet I know it's really important. So I appreciate that you guys continue to put effort into that, and I do think it's important.
And even back to Tom's point, I think we need to be mindful to think outside the box on those social, non-dry business stuff. Both in the meetings and then as we can socially outside with adult beverage or social.
Not sanctioned by.
Not sanctioned by the HAB.
You guys do on your own time, is your business?
And as someone who's not a member, yesterday's tour, I've gone on probably 12 or 13 tours now, and I went places yesterday I'd never been before. I learned new things. I heard new stories from Rick. It was a really well done tour. I appreciate it.
Amber's back and has her hand up.
She does.
Okay, I always try and take my hand down before I take off the mute button. Sorry. And I didn't do that very well. Okay. Sorry, I tried to get on and my computer refused to connect to Teams. So after about 8 minutes of frustration, I just jumped on my phone. So sorry I was late to get the next agenda item, but I've just been listening and enjoying, and I agree. The social time is really important. Since Department of Energy chose to put term limits on, there's been a lot of new members joining because people term out. And so in previous times, the HAB had a lot of long-term members that built personal relationships, working relationships, so they knew each other and they could work together on advising the tri-parties and coming up with priorities and advising on cleanup priorities, etc. I just, with a lot of new members coming on the board over the last 4 years, I think those social engagements, making them very much a part of the experience of a HAB meeting is really important for people to get to know each other. It's going to be hard to, find consensus on an item if we don't know each other and each other's personalities and where we're coming from. So I also want to thank, Maya for organizing those events. And unfortunately, I couldn't come down last night to participate, but next time.
Josh, I got a quick question. Who is not participating? I mean, we're worse than the lull or the lag in the HAB folks. I mean, this is.
So we do have,
I mean, when and where?
so we do have some new members that come on and then we don't see them. And so what we're trying to do is trying to enhance the member's experience, ensure that they have the information they need to be a successful HAB member. And if we're missing the mark anywhere, try to pivot and make those adjustments where necessary.
Yeah, I can agree that, like, was on the Oregon Hanford cleanup board and we had 4 functions and he came onto this board and if I hadn't have found that connection with folks, I probably wouldn't be here today. This.
That's good to know. Brian, do you have anything to add?
No, I was just, I agree with what you said, is we're trying to, retain folks and make sure that they feel that they're supported and they have what they need. And I agree, seeing, I've gone and attended some of the, after hours, non-sanctioned, events, and I think they're really valuable. I like to get to know HAB members too, from the ecology perspective. I like to get to know you guys and get to know, your experiences and where you're coming from and what your thoughts are on different issues. And it's valuable to me too. So I do try to go to those when I can. And I echo what everybody else said about the kudos for you guys putting those together and making that concentrated effort to try and build those HAB member connections. I think it's really valuable.
I have a couple of ideas that I don't know how logistically challenging they would be, but one would be that we send out the weekly HAB email. How challenging would it be to have a little HAB board member spotlight on those and just, have a different board member, just a little bit, who are they, who they represent, a quick statement about why they got involved with the HAB. I mean, some of us are on the HAB because we work with agencies that, are engaged with HAB. Some people choose to get involved with the HAB because of passion or importance, but to Amber's point, to help us at least get to know faces and people and organizations where we might not see them between board meetings or committee meetings might be helpful. The other thought is that, especially in that first year, even if we have 2 board meetings and in the first half of the year, we haven't seen involvement or engagement from some of the new folks, how would we know where we weren't seeing them so that a committee like ours could have somebody volunteer to just reach out and connect to somebody who's new and say, hey, if you have questions, can we help you get more involved? Is it just helpful to be connected to somebody personally?
And even during orientation today, one of the folks that were coming through the different tables said that they had to take vacation time to attend the meeting. And, it's a challenge for sure. And if someone is having to take vacation time to come to a HAB meeting and they're not showing up in person because they won't have any vacation time, there's some people we're not gonna be able to reach that way.
But you won't know if you don't contact them
Right,
and ask them,
right.
right? So if you're having those problems where new people say like me, and I'm not coming, it would be great if someone calls and said, hey, why aren't you attending? Is there something you can do? Because there might be something that's, an issue or something that could be remedied quickly.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but historically, if there were people or organizations or interests that were not attending, it was the agencies that would call that nominating authority and say, hey, are you guys still interested in that? Consistent with what everyone else's experience was in the past? Before my time.
I don't know the answer to that question. I'm trying to think back and, yeah, I don't know.
Well, I think there are some, there are those extenuating circumstances too, and that's where some of that knowledge and relationship starts to come in, like, I have two examples just for myself. I RSVP'd and said, yes, I was gonna go to last night's dinner. And then I had a horrible headache last night. I left work early. I went home. I didn't even think about telling anybody I wasn't coming to the dinner. I actually got a text message from Susan Coleman this morning saying, hey, we missed you at the dinner last night. I hope everything's okay. It was like, it felt very good to know that you were missed and somebody just wanted to make sure that things were okay. I also felt bad that I didn't tell anybody that I wasn't gonna make it. But it could have been assumed, oh my gosh, Michelle says she's coming with stuff and then she doesn't come. But our out of town meeting in Spokane. For me, I have had conflicts for both of our out of town meetings. Again, they're important. I think they're important. I want to be able to be there. But your primary job responsibilities sometimes get in the way of that. So then you just do the best you can to try and engage. But the more we can also talk about that with new people and help them understand that we get it. Sometimes you have conflicts. These meetings are long. It's a huge time commitment. It is sometimes more of a time commitment than other commitments. Let's say that. Then to just know that it's okay, and we want you to be engaged to the level and ability you can be engaged.
I think too, even, the tour here was great, and Tom's gonna get me on the tour up to, Whidbey Island where the subs are, he doesn't know that yet.
Been well told.
Right, but, then the Oregon Hanford group, right, we went down to the WIP, and as a group, and, sadly missed the Spokane meeting.
Right.
But boy, it was hugely valuable. I mean, these things cost time and money, but boy, they really engage, folks immediately. Kind of things.
Is there an interest or an ability to, reach out to the Carlsbad field office and see if they support HAB members visiting with?
I'm going to say probably not something that's feasible. It's not something that we would be able to pay for. But I'll definitely take the question back and ask the question. Like I said, I'm guessing the answer is no, but I can't give you a firm no until I ask the question.
With what time remains on this, were there any ideas presented that sound like we could act on them in the near term?
Everyone bring your extra Halloween candy to the window.
I think for me, just ensuring that those agendas, when I'm working with the committee chairs and vice chairs and the facilitation team, just ensuring that we're, meeting expectations when we're planning these meetings and going from there. And if something's not working, having that, that debrief and saying, hey, this worked or this really didn't work, let's not do it again. And just making sure our new members feel welcome and are there to learn.
I think we just may look at for the various subcommittees is establish a time for questions of what do we want to know, type of thing from the members, remembering questions.
And when we're building full board agendas, it's important to, best we can, we do it, but really highlight where quorum is required. So if you are time constrained and you can only be here at this one agenda item, to make sure that, that's really clear, that's the most important part. It's all important, but the most important part.
I really liked Michelle's suggestion of the HAB member spotlight and the Thursday weekly updates. And maybe it could include like a fun fact, personal fact. So in the next meeting, you say, oh my gosh, I didn't know you love skydiving or whatever. And it's another way to connect, not just specific about the HAB and that, but something that's fun, short, that you can learn about another HAB member.
I mean, after 2 years, I didn't know that Rebecca was on a competitive line dancing team. Like, what? I don't know anything. How interesting.
Teaches it.
And she teaches it. Yeah, yeah, no, yeah, and they TikTok. And
Learn all sorts of stuff.
I will commit to thinking through the workload for that, because we have member generated content and 50-ish weeks to fill in the air.
You don't have anything else to do. I'm sure it'll be fine.
So maybe some folks want to volunteer and shoot something over to Josh each week.
It could start with the folks who have already volunteered to be mentors.
There we go.
So the new members are not only learning who the mentors are, but learning something about the mentors.
100%. Is there a next step for this conversation, of the revisit in future meetings?
From my perspective, maybe we just kind of touch base at the next COE meeting and see how things are going and if our new members are feeling like anything is missing. Any thoughts on that?
I'd say also, I think, there have been several suggestions of potential activities that also if we bring that list back, and maybe we've all had some time to think about, are there some logistics that are needed to move some of those things forward, so that we could actually be at a place that we could take a next step.
I kind of think it's gonna be a lot more rewarding and helpful for you guys too, with EPA and ecology or whoever, DOE to have that involvement, right? And so I think it's important too to get, not only the members spotlight, but who you are and you're that portion of this contact, at these meetings. I mean, took me a year to figure out who.
Who was who?
Yeah, who was who and what position.
So with that, we will touch base at the next COE meeting, see how we're going, compile the ideas and see what we can find next steps for. We are a little over time for the next one. We have a discussion on the September regional meeting. We hope that's going on September 10th and 11th. For those that attended, well.
Yeah, what did you guys think of the regional meeting?
The audiovisual was really well done, as someone who attended remotely as an alternate.
Let's say the same thing. Yeah, it was good. That's good. Good feedback, because we sometimes have hiccups in our AV, so.
Right.
I wonder if it was the internet at the location.
Seems like someone did their homework on the room as well, which is important.
The meeting space was good. Did you guys enjoy the meeting space?
It was actually, it was up on the whatever floor, so you got a nice view of Spokane.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, the sun passed.
Yeah, the sun, yeah, but eventually they go over the blinds,
Yeah.
so.
Any other feedback? I know September can be challenging for folks. We had that conversation, so our turnout for in-person attendance was pretty low.
That was gonna be my question, how many people actually attended in person?
I think we maxed out at 11 in person. So we were more. Yeah.
Was that 11 HAB members or was that with staff?
That was 11 HAB members in person.
It's almost like we're in the room now.
It's still fairly low. 11 is very low. I think most of the time we had 9. So
How many members are there?
we have 38 seats on the board. I'd have to take a look at how many were seated at that time, because we do have folks that drop off for various reasons.
What about the evening meeting component? How successful was that? In terms of bringing the public out? I wasn't in the room, so I don't know.
0
There were no members of the public?
in the evening
Yeah,
for the PFAS briefing, 0.
or just any of the, because it was mostly in the evening, right?
So the first night, we had no members of the public, I believe, that were in the room. And the second day, we had the mayor of Spokane who came briefly for the public comment period,
Okay.
and her staff, I believe. But it was pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Dan said, that's not what you want, right? When we advertise and we plan, we want to see a good turnout. So this time we didn't necessarily get that.
Do we, I hear that for in person. I'm just curious for the online component of the meeting during the evening. Do we know if we had any members in public, or I guess maybe not affiliated with the HAB, but we know that hopped on the online component of it?
I have to take a look at the meeting summary.
Okay.
I believe that just came over. I don't remember off the top of my head. I was just
Okay.
kind of like in the room.
No, it's okay. I was curious, so that's no worries. I know it's sometimes we get some reporting that hop on the HAB calls, but I just wasn't sure if there was, the evening component drew more people than we typically see for, online versus in the room.
Yeah, I'm only speaking to the in the room.
Okay.
Yeah, I was disappointed that we didn't have somebody from the media, join us. A newspaper reporting a short bit on us, or TV station doing an 8-second or something. But there was apparently no media interest either.
They were virtual.
Yeah, there were a couple reported virtual, because I know the Tri-City Herald did a story.
Is that right?
HAB device. I wasn't at the meeting, but I heard there was some coverage.
Yes, but net we had reached out.
But they weren't present in the room at any time. I didn't think that, from my perspective, the meeting there was, different than meetings here. I just didn't get much difference as far as our reports went, or the presentations to us. It just seemed like a normal meeting to me. It just was at a different location.
Yeah.
And if you could find that kind of location here, it'd be better.
Yeah. I mean, this is the Tri-Cities after all.
Stories out of glass. Yeah.
With the view.
With the view, yeah.
With the fancy light pictures,
Yeah.
right? I'm on it, Larry.
Josh? Online, we have a comment from Amber.
Yeah, I'm just following up because I appreciate that the HAB came to Spokane. Thank you. My commute was short. I guess I had brought this up several different HAB meetings over the last, 3 or 4 months. Like, what is the goal of having a regional meeting? Is it to engage the community around a conversation that the community is interested in? Or is it just to hold a HAB meeting in a different location? Because I was struggling. I guess I don't know how much the tri-parties reached out to organizations in Spokane, the media. You say you reached out. What does that look like? Because every time I brought up suggestions, I felt like I was told that this was just a regional HAB meeting, but it wasn't necessarily like a public meeting like was held this summer around, some of the topics. So I guess I really was appreciative that the meeting was in Spokane, but I was frustrated because over the last 3 or 4 months before the meeting, I was saying, well, what's the plan to engage people to come to the meeting? But, I don't know what kind of outreach was done. But if you don't do, targeted strategic outreach, and you don't tell reporters why they should maybe care about what we're doing at the HAB, I think it's hard for people to say, well, why would I show up to the meeting for 2 specific comment periods? So those are just, I think we need to think about, I think the regional meetings could be very powerful if they are well organized and outreach is done prior to municipalities, the local governments, nonprofits, the media, school districts, to let folks know that the meeting is there and what we'll be talking about. So I'm not sure whose responsibility that is or how we do that better, but we're never going to have attendance unless we treat it as if we want people to attend and reach out ahead of time beyond just a notice, So those are, if we just want to hold a meeting in a different location, that's great. Because I do think it exposes HAB members to other organizations and people and communities. But again, I'm not sure what the ultimate If the goal is to get a lot of people to show up to a public comment, 15 minutes at the mic, is that the goal? That's the question.
So the goal of a regional HAB meeting or of any HAB meeting is for the HAB to conduct their HAB business. So every HAB meeting, the purpose as we walk in is to provide the opportunity for folks to adopt a work plan, adopt advice, do what they are chartered to do. Now, as far as the regional meeting opportunity, this is something that has been done previously. I believe the year before was in Yakima, and prior to that, there was a regional meeting in Bellevue. The board is requesting to hold their meetings in other locations to provide the opportunity for their local stakeholder or their local representatives to attend. As far as outreach, Ryan, you can speak a little bit more to that, as well as as news releases, because those were done. There were social media done. There are some limitations in the amount of outreach we can do just because of the staffing, right?
I'll say what we did. We did a joint TPA news release and sent that out about 2 weeks before the meeting happened. And then I specifically reached out. I reached out to my ecology counterpart at the Spokane office and got a list of some media to specifically reach out to. So while I sent out the news release to the ecology news distribution list, I also sent it out to a list of specific Spokane reporters. And then beyond that, Amber, I know you and I had several of the conversations about how we could make it a meaningful meeting, and you had the idea of there being like I don't want to call it social, but like a gathering almost where we invited, local officials and stuff to meet with HAB members, between the end of the afternoon component and the evening component. And I know that got brought up at the ESC several times, and I think this is where my brain gets all fuzzy, but I think that just didn't ultimately come to fruition, unfortunately, with some of those discussions. So I think that's something that if there are going to be regional meetings in the future, that we talk about how we can, better strategize that, work with ESG members. Because I think when we raised that topic of the gathering was that's not something that we could have supported, because similar to like the social gatherings, I don't want to speak for you, Lindsay, that relatively right for that request for that event, that would have been like a social gathering.
That made that a little bit challenging.
Okay, so that made that a little challenging, so it couldn't happen from that standpoint, which I know that makes it harder to hold those kind of events if the agent, if we can't support it, but maybe that's something we can talk about more in the future.
So I reached out to.
Can I just get back to by how we measure success, then we should just be clear on, and maybe we could come around, what are our measures of success of a regional meeting? And then, later when we do a debrief, then we can look at those measures, whether they be engaging community leaders, whether they be getting our business done effectively, and then those could be what we measure, what we measure success, what it looks like. So that's just a follow-up, but.
Thank you, Amber.
Larry and Tom.
I reached out to Ryan a few weeks before and asked him about contact, because I kind of offered to help. And he sent me a copy of the message that he sent, which was a perfectly good message. It's probably not enough. I think that maybe to get the media interested, we need to tell them what the importance of the meeting is, which would have been community participation in the Hanford project. I personally called the assignment desks at the 3 TV stations that have news over there, and I just said, that the HAB board is meeting, and it's a group that provides advice to the Department of Energy regarding Hanford cleanup. And one of them was fairly interested. Well, they didn't show up, but I think we need to do a little more detail on announcements. Maybe, just some kind of a bait or a tickler or something that may pique their interest and get it on their schedule for reporters to go out. I was disappointed that there weren't people there, because I think that, as you said, Lindsay, that's the importance of the meeting is for HAB to discuss the decision making, but it's an opportunity to get people from the community out there, and it kind of reflects back to the survey it's just not happening in the kind of, volume or interest that we want to see.
So this is the constant struggle that the HAB has between the TPA public involvement plan and the EMS SAB charter. You know, EMS SAB charter says we're here to write advice. Public involvement plan says we're here to write advice and be an outlet for public education and involvement. I think if we want the public to come, we all need to be out of our comfort zones. We need to have exciting and engaging agendas that are controversial, or of topics that have interest in the public. PFAS was a good attempt. I don't think the limitations met what they could have been. If the only goal of a regional meeting is to have business, then the two regional meetings we've had in the past couple of years have been the most productive meetings in the HAB year. The first one, we did the operating ground rules, advice, and the work plan, and renamed all the committees. This one, we did the work plan, the calendar, and 3 pieces of advice. That is a full board meeting, and it was productive, and we had quorum. So check, most successful meeting of the year. Let's have all the meetings in regional meetings, and then we'll have really productive meetings. I'm just kidding.
I was like, there's costs associated with that. You guys get like 2 meetings and that.
Got your, my point is, we got their money's worth.
Be tough.
Is Hawaii in our region?
Region 10. EPA would have to fund that one.
I would be curious to know, because again, I wasn't there. How many of the HAB board members were remotely there for the evening portion of the agenda?
I want to say we've had 9 in the room for the evening portion.
In the room, I thought we capped out at 11 either day.
Some left early on day 1.
Sorry, I'm trying to remember. I think online also balanced out because they happen to overlap with the day that the tribes couldn't attend, or perhaps I don't have any information in particular.
And it also was the debate. Yes, the presidential debate. So there were some competing. Right. Yeah, competing.
So if I recall, tracking quorum, I think we reached 17 members both day and have it balanced out.
I was just curious because I think that would have been a prior conversation, was that whole idea of, do you get more engagement in an evening meeting versus a day meeting? Or
I don't know if this is gonna be a good metric because of all the conflicts nationally, and nationally is the right word.
Other feedback or thoughts to share?
in terms of Amber's question about clarifying the intent and goal of regional meeting, who makes that determination? I mean, we do it because at some point in the past, the HAB board said we should do this. So I'm just curious if we're seeking either clarification or, I'm not saying change it, but, you know, clarification of what's the goal of having the regional, meeting versus just always having them, you know, in the same place. Where does that decision come from? Where that conversation happen?
So historically, regional meetings have happened because Hanford was more in the news back then. And it was more in the news in a spicy way. So there was a lot more public interest around the region. We had a much more robust reporter corps and like TV news, and now the news world is so scattered that you don't have that sort of laser focus. In my opinion, that the regional meetings are a chance for everyone to get out of their comfort zone and meet in a neutral space. It allows us to all have to go out to dinner. And there's value there. And if we reach one or two news outlets that don't usually talk to Hanford, I know, the Spokane News, I don't know what exactly it is, which one it is, called Max and asked about something that they had heard about at the meeting. He wasn't speaking on behalf of the HAB, he was speaking on behalf of Oregon, but he got a news story out there about Hanford that wouldn't have been published if not for the HAB meeting. That's good.
Yeah, and I'm not debating whether we should or shouldn't, I'm just asking where does that conversation happen to provide that clarity of this is why we do this and how we measure whether it's.
We've been struggling over the past decade, trying to balance the public engagement and outreach versus advice. And even the length of advice, backgrounds can either be informative and teach the public about the topic, or they can be de-reality those, so.
And I think from the department's perspective, when making the decision to host a regional meeting, we get a lot of input that folks want to have these regional meetings. And I think what the department requests is when we do host these regional meetings, that you come. Because to bring all of our, our senior level managers and our, AV crew and facilitation and, all of the support staff for low attendance, that's tough. It's a lot of money being spent on one meeting when, is there a different place where that money should be spent if our folks aren't coming and they're just joining online? So there's just lots of different things to look at when evaluating the requests that come in. And so that's why I wanted some feedback on what you guys thought of the September meeting. As I take that request back, because I know that we had a request at the leadership workshop to hold one this next fiscal year. And right now I don't have a response. So we're still waiting on that.
My suggestion is don't do September or August.
Yes.
I think those months clearly are not good months for a regional meeting, and we kind of thought, everything was scheduled, but we did see it coming. Of knowing certain people were gonna be out of town and not available.
Yeah.
So, for looking at, the Yakima meeting in April, we did have good attendance at that meeting. And so maybe and I know originally we're gonna do May, and then
the request was from the HAB, instead of moving the dates in May, they have requested the September meeting be the regional meeting. So maybe it's just a lesson learned that we apply moving forward. So we tried it, didn't quite turn out as we anticipated or were hoping for. And like I said, be flexible, pivot, and see how we can do better.
Gotta find the sweet spot between location and time.
I just want to echo, I think Lindsay raised one good, a lot of really good points, but one of the points that you just said I wanted to highlight was, I think it's really important, especially if we're having regional public meetings, to try and get members of the public to attend, the media to attend, that it's like, we also need to really focus on getting HAB members to attend. So I just want to highlight that it is important that for HAB regional meetings, that members are attending in person, for the reasons you guys said too, to get the members together and be able to go, outside the meeting and build those relationships and stuff. But yeah, it is tough to have a regional meeting, and I wasn't there, so I can't speak to it, so I'm part of that problem, I guess. I was in Ireland, but
that would be
Rub it in, right? Rub it in.
to have all the senior leadership, all that staff come out, all the money being spent for 9-10 HAB members to show up when we have 38 seats, that's tough. So but it's just a lot of considerations is what it comes down to. But so like I said, the public attendance and media is really important, but it's also important that we have the HAB attendance. That's probably the most important part of it. And then next is the next levels of it.
This would be a completely different conversation if we didn't have quorum. We did. And Mia called in from Spain, it was 2:30 in the morning, you should.
Kudos to Mia. I'm okay.
Tom, how did we plan Oregon? We were out of town.
Yeah, so we had OHCV on speed dial in case we needed quorum. Max was primary for Oregon Department of Energy, and he was in the room, so. Yeah.
We'd have been there in my defense.
I'll just go on record and get brownie points from both Ryan and Robert that I was hosting a meeting with Ecology and EPA in Tri-Cities.
I appreciate the conversation and all the feedback, and definitely things that will be considered as we start planning for applications for next year.
So I think the next step for the committee might be to provide some feedback then on what success would look like, to follow up on Michelle's comment. Because if success is having community members engage in some way, whether it be at a reception or during public comment or in some other way, then we probably as the HAB need to be working with the tri-parties to make that happen as part of the meeting planning. So I'm just giving that as an example. If that's something that's a key measure of success, then we would need to go about it differently than how we went about it for Spokane. So hopefully we can have that conversation just in anticipation then of when we might plan regional meetings for next year. Does that work, Lindsay?
So yes, I think we need to have that conversation, but because we have not committed to a regional meeting for 2025, I don't want to go too far down that path until I have confirmation that we either, yes, are holding a regional meeting or no, we are not.
And tying back to what Amber was talking about earlier, we are expecting a document from DOE at the end of this year that explains what the transportation route for the holistic negotiation waste is. And there are cities along that transportation route, which regardless of where it is, which way it goes. So that would be an opportunity to get people who are interested to come to a public HAB meeting, if we're talking about holistic transportation routes.
I agree. All right. Anything else? Okay, then let's move to, oh, was that another comment?
Sorry, I was letting you know I'm not seeing anything in the room.
Okay, perfect. Let's move to committee business then. And that's planning our next meeting. So, Josh, when do we have our next meeting anticipated?
So there are committee meeting placeholders on January 15th and 16th.
Okay.
Calendar in front of me, but I believe that is another Wednesday, Thursday split.
Yes, Wednesday, Thursday. The third Wednesday and Thursday. Is that
Before, those would be the week before the MLK Junior holiday. Okay. Okay, so which, are you keeping a list of topics that we put aside, Josh, to bring back to that meeting? Or I know we'll also want to get guidance from the HAB meeting in November about items for our agenda as well.
Yes, I have been keeping track of what was proposed throughout the meeting. And we will have 2 leadership calls, one at the end of this month, the other at the beginning of December, to kind of sort out any remaining details. So the one in December will serve as a chance to follow up on November activities. So
Cleanup priorities should be on the agenda.
Do we have anyone who has volunteered to lead the cleanup priorities advice?
We don't have an IM team lead yet.
Okay, that's what I would have.
I think I wouldn't be nervous yet.
Are you like in the background as a maybe leading?
I
Or
am in
no?
the background, actively searching for an IM team lead. So if someone else has a chance to write HAB advice.
Okay, are you by default?
I am organizing,
Okay,
but I'm not writing right
perfect, got it.
I would also volunteer that, whatever comes out of farm tomorrow, that risk advice is supposed to be a joint topic, so that might be something that Carm could bring to, COE. I'm using acronyms. So the risk mitigation could bring to community outreach and engagement.
So other items I heard during this meeting. We're going to want to touch base on the new member engagement discussion. We just had orientation, we heard tour went well. Our new members will have had a chance to experience the HAB a little bit more. We'll see how they're feeling. And following up on the public involvement survey discussion from earlier, that feedback will have been implemented into a new public involvement survey. Brian, you'll be seeking additional feedback.
Is that a good time, Ryan, to keep providing some more feedback on outreach related to this survey?
Glad you asked that, because I was actually, that's what I was checking on the date, because typically we send out the survey the first week or two of January. This next co-meeting is mid-January, so the survey will be finalized and sent out by the time this committee meeting happens. So that being said, I think it would be a good opportunity though to maybe that's where the three agencies could come in and say, here's the survey we sent out, here's who we sent it to, and then maybe we can maybe see how it's going, how many responses we have at that point, and just to say how many responses we have, and go over the outreach and see if you guys have any suggestions for maybe things, groups we may have missed. It might be a good, maybe a short discussion topic.
Yeah, I mean, you can always send it out to more groups, right? I mean, what's the time frame by which it's active?
Yeah, I don't have the exact time frame right now, but the last couple of years we've done it. I think it's been 30 to 45 days the last couple of years for them. So it'll still be like in the first couple of weeks of it being sent out. So yeah, I think it's definitely a good conversation and like you said, we can always send it out to more people. So we could have maybe a check-in on the topic and see if you guys have suggestions on who else to send it to, if we miss anybody, that kind of thing.
That sounds good. Do you also engage the tribes in the best ways to provide? I mean, they may have their own ways of getting community input, but have you talked with them about the survey before and how they might help in getting input to the survey?
Yeah, I think the last cycle we just shared it, but I think there's opportunity for more involvement there. So I think we'll be reaching out separately from the HAB to
like having a specific meeting with the tribes, because it may be some things may need to be reworded, or they might want to do their own survey, but that could be aligned with the tri-party survey. So those are just some thoughts. I didn't get a chance to mention that earlier in the discussion.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and I don't want to speak on behalf of the tribes, but I think it's something that we're looking to, if they're open to it, to maybe having some more engagement on the survey. So I think we'll look into doing that this year.
Okay, any other topics? Josh, did you have anything else?
Another topic we may be anticipating. In the previous fiscal year, COE had an opportunity to learn about Ecology's HEAL Act, and we were expecting a draft engagement plan to be ready sometime early next year. Does that look likely for January?
Potentially, we need to go check with Chelsea one more time to see what their timeline's looking at, but potentially, I think it was still either tracking like early next year. So I'll go check. I'll go take the homework back and I'll check with our headquarters to see where the agency-wide plan's at. But I know they're making really good progress on it.
So from what I've heard, we have a fairly full agenda, depending on what shakes out. So potentially we would look at the first draft of the HEAL
I
Act.
think it would be good. Josh, sorry, it's hard to see everybody in the room. I had to plug in my phone, so that's why I'm standing up with my phone. I think it would be good to follow up with the full HAB at the full HAB meeting in November, to the full board meeting on some of the new member perspectives and asking new members to introduce themselves and having time for that. And then we could follow up on some of the new member support that we can provide, at the January meeting as well.
So that's another part of the HAB member engagement discussion.
That's probably a good place to put it.
so we will. The November agenda is in progress. I think we'll have to take a look at that. See if that fits in.
Just a quick question on November, Josh. Are we looking at, I know that the executive committee still needs to probably meet and finalize things, but are you looking at a full day, the first day of November? The first day of the HAB meeting?
We are looking at one day of the HAB meeting on November 6th, with the following day being set aside for potential IMT work due to the amount of time that we have. And the next ESC meeting falls 1 week before the next HAB meeting.
Right.
So
That's really
working with
close.
Susan and Mia to finalize that and distribute it ahead of that ESC call.
Yeah, if you have any drafts or what you guys are thinking about, I know all of us plan our agendas out pretty far in advance. So it's always just good to block out on my calendar, just all of us that have other full-time jobs, to be able to know kind of how to plan. And so I'll just let you know too about my availability for a committee report. So thank you.
So Amber, we're looking at November 6th, I believe from 9 to 4:30.
Okay.
And then November 7th, as he shared, would be able to be utilized for any issue manager teams that would like to accomplish work.
Anything else?
For this committee, I guess I'll review. We're looking at touching base on the new member engagement or current member engagement. We're looking at space for the COE to review their cleanup priorities. Following that towards future advice for February. We may be looking at the community engagement plan. We will. And we'll follow up at the ESC, probably, have you and Tom connect and see how does the risk discussion split between the two committees at that point in time.
Just one quick clarifier, I think you wrote on there that said, I scrolled a little bit, sorry, Josh. You said, anticipating the draft engagement plan, that would be the actual, engagement plan, like the finalized state one, and then that would be before we do the nuclear waste program one, so I just want to clarify that.
State engagement plan.
And I'm assuming it's done by then, so that's what I'm gonna check in on and see if it's ready by then.
And as far as the risk discussion, that we may or may not be ready for that by January. We don't have confirmation at this time.
Yeah, that would be committee to committee discussion, not SME to committee discussion.
Understood. I just want to make sure that we're providing the necessary information to the group to write.
We have initial plans, and as this progresses, we will start formulating that into an agenda. Should probably have it distributed in December sometime, so I get that finalized in our early December ESC call. Any other thoughts for the next meeting?
Nothing from me.
Any other committee business to solve over here?
All right. Thank you, everyone, for your participation. This meeting is adjourned.